Okay, we are live, and we have the star from Australia, and we've got Tom Rue. Welcome, big love, big blessings to you. And we've got some more people sitting watching. Thank you for being patient and waiting for me. I was actually going to be early this morning, but something came up. It always does. I had to go make sure my son was okay and promised to take him somewhere just now. I was going to take him out much later, but plans have changed. We are sitting here with TallTree. It's just past 6 a.m. in the morning. What an honor to have TallTree here, making this very important time of his day our time. So we're going to be having a lovely little tongue waggle about the nature of Easter and the source of Easter and what you put that sauce onto. How does the sauce make things taste? Big love, big blessings, dear TallTree. He's been practicing. He's very devoted to his martial arts. He's also a father, very devoted to his family and his child. He's like the kind of daddy all the little girls wish they had. All those little girls out there, you know. There you go. You got the lucky. This little girl got the lucky. So welcome, dear Jenny. It's an honor to have you. Tell us a little bit about yourself so we can jump right in.
Sure. I'm sure. Well, hopefully the same people keep on checking in and watching. But I don't know. I don't know too much to say about myself. But anyways, yeah, let's just get into it. So with Easter, as far as I can tell, it's it's a Christian religious holiday. It's a astrological phenomenon. And might also be associated with some sort of pagan deity of fertility. So we got three things right there. What do you want to talk about first?
I suppose the right place to start would be with the etymology of the word. We can't pretend that it doesn't relate to the word estrogen.
Right.
That it's all about that loving touch, ladies and gentlemen. It's about how you touch your partner when the lights go off. It's about the little boys and little girls that come into our lives as a result of the love that we feel for our partners. And now it's about a man on a cross. Something going on here. It used to be about okay, so let's just cast our mind into Europe for a moment, or the Northern Hemisphere, where you live right now, for example, right? It might get a bit cold in winter, a bit of snow, right? Not hospitable. So if you were living there without the central heating and the gas on tap and the store with all the food, and you were going to have a baby, what would be the best survival rates for your child? If you're roughing it, right? You don't have central heating. You're relying on fire. There's not much food growing in winter. Your stores are what they are. You've got enough basic wheat, corn, whatever to see you through the winter, but the high value nutrition is going to come later, right? Would you want your child to be born at a point that they are a newborn baby going into winter? Or would you rather have your newborn baby being born at a time when it's when you're coming out of winter. Let's look at it like from that perspective.
Yeah. So there's a couple factors. You depending on how wealthy you are, let's think about, Northern European, uh, ancient farmers. If you're wealthy in livestock and, you got a thriving village, um, you know, you got good stores, the barbarians are going to be the Vikings aren't going to be coming around for a while. It may actually make more sense to uh it might be okay to have a child uh in the fall or during winter. Um and it might actually be healthier for the baby because it'd be like less stress on the mom, being pregnant through winter. Uh but uh having a child in the spring, you have one less mouth to feed, and maybe a bit of less stress through the winter if it's just your wife being pregnant. 100%.
Here's the question, though. That would have been a very small minority of the population, don't you think? Don't you think that in the old times, the majority of the people lived rurally? 90% of the world's population lived rurally, using surviving through subsistence farming. I believe that was the norm. And then there were some wealthy few people that got to live in the towns. And even in the towns, there would have still been, we didn't have the preservation of fridges and what we have today. So there still wouldn't have been fruit. So you're right about the mother having her worst challenging pregnancy time during the winter. So let's say you put a bun in the oven in April, right? And April to May to June to July to August, September, October, November, December, January. During January, your baby's born. This is the hypothetical. Now you're coming on your way out of winter, right? You've just started coming out of winter and you've got a newborn baby. The newborn baby doesn't need to see light for the first month. In fact, it's not good for the eyes. The first 2 weeks, light damages the eyes of a child, right? First 4 days, if you expose your child to too much light, it will cause vision impairment later on in life. So, because their eyes develop quite slowly and the sensitivity to light. So
they're not really opening their eyes too much during that time anyways.
Well, I mean, I think they would have noticed that, like, let's say you have to hunt with a bow and arrow.
Yeah.
Your eyesight's quite important, right?
For sure.
Like, that's your survival. And also, being in the wild, having good eyesight it's a benefit. Like survival, like being safe and alive. But so, like, just from the practicality of that, the mom would still be able to work through the summer, right? She would still be able to work through she'd be able to work up until her third trimester. She used to lay off, right?
Yeah. It's a little difficult to walk around.
Exactly. Her third trimester would be November, December, October, November, December kind of phase. By that time, most of the hard work's done, right? There might be some fields, some seeds to plant for certain winter crops, but I think that they pretty much, most of the work's been done. The man would go out with the bull, right? And plow and just throw the seeds down, right? But most of the other work would have been done in terms of harvesting and making preserves, harvesting, because a lot of the crops would have been summer, right? Would have been coming out summer and early on in the year.
Summer
and that's probably when most of the work gets done, right? The collecting of wood, the storing of wood piles and stocks of kindling and all of that, that would have been done through the good months of the year.
Yeah,
By the time
for
it comes to October, November, people are starting to relax because it's getting colder.
sure.
So like also for the mother's nutrition, the mother's gotten pregnant and she's got a baby growing in her. It's May, it's June, it's July, it's August, it's September. Those are the 5 months of the most abundance of fruits, of berries, of salads, right?
Mm.
There's an abundance of really high nutritional food that she now needs to eat in her body to store up high nutrition in her body that's going to go to the baby, because you don't want her nutrition levels to drop. So there's that principle. And then there's also the fact that now you've got a newborn baby being born. The newborn baby is born in January, February, March, April, May. By June, the baby's 6 months old and is crawling around outside.
Mhm.
In summer, eating berries off of the ground. Imagine, with these berry bushes, crawling around to the berry bush,
Right.
with the children on the farm and the family on the farm working in summer. The child's getting exercise. It's learning how to dexterity, move around. Oh, like this thing, you can't eat that thing. You can eat this. That goes in the mouth. It's like what they do. And so by the time the next winter comes around, the child's already 9 months old, 10 months old, right? Going
Mhm.
into the next winter. Now the child is bigger and stronger and more likely to survive the next winter, if that makes sense. If it's a
Yeah.
harsh, really cold winter and there's no central heating in the home, the child is better equipped. So like there's the survival element, there's the nutrition element, there's the pressure on the parents, and then there's also the light, the maximized light. So the child's brain gets maximum stimulation while the child is developing, because between the ages of between 3 months and 8 months, there's a huge developmental curve for children.
Mhm.
They're learning so much about the environment. If you stunt that first developmental curve, then that's going to carry over to the next developmental curve, and it's going to be stunted like a plant, permanently stunted. You'll notice with your plants, one plant gets stunted because of overwatering, right? That plant will never reach the potential that the other plants will reach ever. Nothing you can do to fix that. So like the first year of a child's life is so important. Like my baby never got sick, ever.
Mhm.
Second year, never got sick. Third year, never got sick. Fourth year, never got sick. Fifth year, never got sick. He didn't go back to the hospital for a doctor's appointment like he was supposed to. He never went to see a medical professional ever in his life. And now he's 9 years old and he weighs almost 100 pounds. He's going to be a tank. Buff little guy with bones, solid bones. He's strong. He's going to be a warrior because he's got the mindset and the body set to be a warrior. He's got the physical strength in him. He's, he can't play with other boys his age, like roughly, because I have to worry about him breaking the children. I'm like, no, dude. Like, we'll find you a boy who's like 2 or 3 years older than you, and then you can like play a bit rough. Like, and then I don't mind about my boy being hurt. He's tough. So I think like those first initial developmental phases are so important, especially for nutrition and for physical. So that's just like on the grounding level. Namaste, Vincent. How you doing, man? Natalie, big love to you. Salad, welcome, Salad. I hope your lettuce is smiling. Let us all have fun today. And D Love, welcome to D Love. Welcome to Ethics Over Faith. Ooh, ethics over faith, morality over ethics, I would say. But hey, each to their own, as long as we're smiling, happy, and gay. The correct kind of happiness, I say, is important. We've got 0345 Juska. We've got Tomru. We've got the Star. We've got welcome to all of you. I hope you guys are all smiling. So what do you think, dear brother? I mean, I know it's this is a long shot, but this is just something that I've always thought about. With regards to like, if I was living in the jungles and I was living in a cold climate, when would I want to have a baby? And I would literally plan it and I would stick to the schedule just because I've lived in the wilderness before, and I've noticed like there's certain times when there's abundance, when life is easy. There's certain times, like in winter, I was in the Himalayas in the wild, spending a lot of time in the wild, and it's actually pretty damn hard dealing with cold weather and storms, and that fire is your source of life. If that fire can't be maintained properly, then it becomes very hard. And if you were to have a baby in challenging circumstances, it could cause complications for survival. I don't know. What do you think?
Well, humans are extremely adaptable, and you're talking about the Himalayas and living out in the wilderness, and it made me think about the winter I spent in Montana, uh, basically in a town that's on the plains, because eastern Montana is plains. It's like Comanche territory, uh, and you know that's that's probably some of the harshest winter, you know, that you can experience out there on the American steppe, because there's nothing to stop the wind. Um, it rips through there, and when I was there in Montana, it got down to like -31 um a few times. I was driving home um for my bartending gig. It was like 2 in the morning, and my tire lost its bead because it was so cold, and I had to change a tire in like -28, and that was uh that was an interesting experience. Um, then I remember the next day uh chopping wood, and it was full sunlight, and it was -9, and I was wearing like all the clothing, like these big Carhartt overalls, big boots and hat and mittens and all that kind of stuff, chopping wood, and I was chopping wood. I was vigorously chopping wood, and I remember I never warmed up. I never really warmed up. And I was just and close, near the house there, there's a ridge, uh, and it's uh where Native Americans, ancient peoples they would run buffalo over a cliff uh on this formation. Like, there's actually a museum out there that they would where they found like ancient buffalo skulls, from like long time ago, back when like the buffalo were like, 3 times as big as they are now. But anyways, like, people have been living in that area for a long time, and uh those winters are so harsh. Um, but they survived and they persisted. Uh, but as far as like as far as spring goes, uh there eh, I would have I was just thinking, the spirit of spring is just like this ascendant, like joyful feeling. Um and there's also something very sensual about it, you know, because the animals are either giving birth, or they're, the lesser animals with the shorter gestation period are they're like making babies, and everything's growing, and it's getting warmer out, and it's you're finally able to, like, run around naked outside, uh because it's warmer, which is great. There's a lot more sun and you feel a lot more alive. Um, and it's ascendant. It's a rising feeling.
And then there's a more occulted element to take into consideration as well. For example, like this is something I came across decades ago in my research. I don't know, a few decades ago, maybe more than 3. Time has flown. And it was certain practices of the priesthoods and priestesshoods of the Celts in Ireland, and going back to the times of Camelot, and these old stories, these old verbal stories that would carry through the, through the culture, our narrative and history that was, contained in such way before we were really writing everything down. And this little guy wants to go down. Okay, you can go down. You can go down. Okay, there we go. Oh, there we go. Can run around and become the dog's problem. And so there were these practices where the priests and the priesthoods, the priestesses, would have these rituals. They're like mating rituals. And they would wear masks, and they would wear like a disguise. And the idea was that the priestess was having intercourse with the horned god, or with the the masculine deity, and the masculine priests were having sex with the feminine deity, and it was a ritualized thing, and nobody knew who had what with who. It was like a blindfolded thing, like you're wearing masks, and it's all done ritualistically. There's like the elders controlling the whole story. And the theme was this: is like, okay, so the priests had natural tendency towards extrasensory perception, which is why they became the Merlins and the priests, right? Because they had this intuitive ability to tune in to the Akashic field and to be able to affect space and time with their minds, and be able to read and intuitively see things and get visions of the future, prophecy, premonitions, have incredible photographic memories, the ability to remember long narratives so they could tell stories, right? The bards. And all of these gifts are not your average human being potential. These were like the exceptional human beings, because of different criteria, made different human beings exceptional in what they inherited as a skill set, or as a potential. And a lot of it had to do with ESP, and this with the woman. Once again, they were the woman that showed the potential for having second sight, and the gifts of prophecy, and all of these things. So their idea was that by mating a man and a woman, of the both carrying the extrasensory potential, you're more likely to get a gifted child. It makes perfect sense, doesn't it? You get a woman with clairvoyant abilities and a male that has the ability to leave his body and travel out into the cosmos, right? Have them have intercourse, and you're likely to get a child that has some of these abilities. In fact, the child might inherit both the mom and the dad's abilities, right? The dad might be clairaudient, the mom might be clairvoyant, right? The dad might have some ability to be able to affect matter. The mom might have some ability to prophecy. Now you've got a child that can affect matter, telekinetic. He's got prophecy gifts. He's got them all because he gets them from both genetic lines. So,
Just like you've mentioned before, the genetic lineage, like you yourself have mentioned that in your lineage, there's probably been people similar to you. And so, of course, doing that intentionally in a ritualized fashion, uh, attempting to embody, you know, the sacred masculine and feminine at a certain time during the year in a certain place. Um, some very powerful, grove of oaks or something like that. Uh, would almost guarantee the a most amount of potential, to imbue, a child during that union. Um, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And it's like, uh that that concept, so not to get um too personal, but when um when my wife and I were thinking of, you know, making our first child, it was very intentional about, you know, what would go into that. Um and it makes for a when it's ritualized, it makes for like a richer experience in life when it's not just some like heady, passion-filled, lustful, you know, moment of ecstasy, you know, uh, that's just like this one-off thing where you're like,
Followed by a shock.
yeah, exactly. Like, oh, I feel different. Like, we gotta go to CVS and get a kit. Um, but yeah. Oh, since we're talking about this, we're gonna have to deviate a little bit and talk about druids for a while, but I want you to finish what you were saying.
Um, I'll just mute you. Just unmute yourself when you want to speak, if you could.
Okay.
Um, yeah, so the story of the druids, I want to take us back, and this is never mentioned in conjunction with Easter, but I want to bring it on. I want to put it on the plate. So we know that there's an etymological connection between what we can see in Ireland and the languages and some of the ancient Coptic and the ancient Egyptian, right? And there seems to be a connection, some kind of a connection there. Even the red hair, and which was well known to be a part of especially the royal lineages, yeah, of the land of Kim, the Kemetic lineages. Now, I remember coming across information. Once again, this is decades ago. I can't remember when and where exactly. We're talking. I did a lot of my reading many decades ago. I'm not now. I prefer to read the sky and the books of like nature and read the leaves of a tree, and like those. That's for me is pleasant reading these days. Books just seem like, oh, what a drudgery, somebody else's ideas about words. Oh gosh, I could be sitting outside listening to the wind. Um, but there was Netar. Namaste, Netar. I hope you're well. Hope you're thriving. Hope you're good. So there was also this thing about Moses. Let's think about Moses for a moment, right? Now, Moses wasn't the only child. Somebody's biting my toes because now he wants to come back up again. He's like a child. Daddy, put me down. Daddy, pick me up. This cockatiel is like a real little character, dude. You should get yourself a cockatiel. They are fun. And it's like having another kid. And so the ancient Egyptians had this priestesshood of Isis and the priesthood of Ra. And I came across certain writings that spoke about this being something that was legended to have happened in ancient Egypt, in the same way that it did with the Celts and the Irish. And then we've got the story of Moses, right? And it's just casually dropped on us that Moses was brought up by the Pharaoh's family after being found in a manger by the papyrus reeds. Now, the papyrus was sacred to the priesthood, right? Because of writing. Writing was first was when writing first originated, it was for spells, for writing the wrongs of the world, using papyrus to draw sigils, right? And hieroglyphs. And those sigils and hieroglyphs were magically empowered tools to be used. And so those magically empowered tools of sigils and hieroglyphs would be how people would change the nature of reality. And to this day, sigils is a huge part of the occult practice. So let's step that back now. So the papyrus reeds was where they found Moses in a manger. Now, there was a practice in ancient Egypt that the royal family would foster the next priests and priestesses. It wasn't just one child, Moses, that this happened to. There's references to other children having the similar thing. And that there was a ritual that, imagine this, the priest and the priestess doing the same ritual that we spoke about. And when the baby's born, in the middle of spring, when the baby's basically gone past breastfeeding, imagine this. The baby gets put ritualistically into a manger and floated in the Nile to symbolically be received by the Pharaoh's daughters, who then becomes a symbolic mother. What a concept. And is adopted into the Pharaoh's family to learn. Whoa, you want to chew everything. Okay.
Yeah, real quick, I just want to so that's interesting because that's also dangerous for the child. And so there's a bit of I don't know what the word is. Maybe inshallah about it's like one of the first I don't know how you say it, like test almost. Either the baby's gonna get eaten by a crocodile or a hippo or get lost in the waves of the river or end up in the arms of the, royal maidens.
That is a seeming possibility. I mean, we've also got to account for the possibility that perhaps there were spells encanted to protect these children, and visions had by the priestesses to augur the future of these babies. Does that make sense? For them to be eligible, right? Because it was a great honor to be brought up in the family of the Pharaoh. It was like, what a way to grow up. But you had the best teachers.
Yeah,
knowledge.
it definitely makes the most practical sense because it's like, okay, like what is a what is a priest in these traditions or in this culture? It's like, it literally they direct direct the flow and the messages, the energy and the messages of the gods, throughout the culture to, propagate the civilization. And so you would want to give the most amount of resources, to people like this. So they have, the most amount of access to the most amount of knowledge so they can be the best and resources so they can be the best, priest possible and continue this is spiritual survival of the civilization.
Yes, like totally. Um, totally. And it's like it's interesting that when we look at this, so I think there's something to these elder stories, and there's something to these ancient stories of you know these sacred tantric unions in India, right? Between the powerful tantric priests and the powerful tantric priestesses,
Yeah, what does
each
tantric mean?
embodying. Well, in tantra, people think that tantra is all about sex because the Kama Sutra went global, went viral.
Okay.
But tantra has elements of sexual magic in it. In fact, I don't know if you know this, but even in the Buddhist tradition in northern Tibet, some of the Buddhist monks and the Buddhist nuns would have tantric sex,
Hmm.
but it would be highly controlled. And I'm sure that the children that came out of such a union, if they were children, would only be allowed at a certain period to be promulgated by certain priests and priestesses in order to become the next monks that are going to be like all priests or nuns that would be very powerful in the way of dharma. So, like we have these in India as well, the priests and the priestesses of tantra would practice their yoga, their tantric yoga, to a high development of kundalini perfection, and then they would have unions. And usually, the men wouldn't allow themselves to spill seed, but I think that at certain times, the spilling of seed would be acceptable if it was to facilitate another great tantraman or tantra yogini or yogi that would be a very powerful addition to the human race, right? To make sure that this child would then grow up in an ashram being taught how to meditate. By the time the child's 12 years old, they're sitting in meditation for 6 hours at a time. By the time the child's 18, they meditate for like every month, they take 24 hours to just sit and meditate for 24 hours. By the time the child's 40, meditation is just how they spend their entire day, every night. And they will have developed supernatural powers by that stage and siddhi and probably be a great teacher and have something to give back to the human race of knowledge and wisdom. So like you can see where the tantra comes from, right? And why in the magical traditions, sexual union between sexual, and within the witch covens, you had similar things happening, by the way. Within the witch covens, the males would wear masks and the women would wear masks and they would breed because you would have the high priest, high priestess, and there would be ritualistically selected who would breed with who, but they also, once again, don't know who's. It was very important that nobody knew who the father or it was supposed to be this child was coming from the divine. So what we're really talking about is immaculate conception. So you can see there's a crossover here with Christmas, right? Easter, in our pagan sense, is more related to Christmas than it is to what we call Easter, which is crucifixion, right? Which is another theme which is quite strange if you think about it. Like when I think of the spirit of the rabbit, I don't think of crucifixion. I think of humping, right? That's what rabbits do. They hump. If you ever get rabbits for your little girl, just be prepared for the fact that she's going to watch a lot of humping. You're going to have to explain to her what on earth is going on there. What are they doing? Why does he keep jumping on her and doing that, Dad?
Yeah. I mean, not only do, all rodents, propagate, profusively, given the proper, environments, but, rabbits, I don't know, there's definitely something, unique about rabbits, and they're they're mythologized. They've got important stories throughout our history, especially in
Can I
Europe.
tell you something about rabbits?
Yeah.
Did you know that a rabbit can give birth at 8 o'clock in the morning and be impregnated in the same day by 5 p.m.?
That's pretty interesting. I mean, they're so tasty and everything wants to eat them. That makes sense. Um, and they're very energetic, so I could see why they wouldn't want to wait. Uh, but I mean, I also I wanted to touch upon their impeccable survival skills. And how deft they are at their movements. You ever try to chase a rabbit? Like, like they're fast, and they move very incredibly. Um,
I can catch them.
yeah,
You've got to make them come past you, and then you've got to be quick. You've got to
mm,
snatch them out of the air. It's a
yeah.
reflex thing. You're about to catch them in midair because it's the only time they're vulnerable. They're not in the air for long. Yeah, man, catching the rabbits because I've got like 8 rabbits outside in a courtyard, and I have to catch them to check them once, like
Okay.
regularly,
Yeah.
that they're okay, that they're healthy, that no
Mhm.
one's bitten a hole in another rabbit, right?
Yeah.
Like I've got 2 that live in here now because one had too many holes bitten in him by the other rabbits. And then, by the way, the spirit of the rabbit. So since we talk about rabbits, let's go into the shamanic
Mm.
idea of a rabbit, right? So we think of rabbits as cute, cuddly little creatures, right? No, a rabbit is a warrior.
Dude, have you seen
There's a reason.
jackrabbits? Sorry, have you seen desert jackrabbits?
I
Like,
haven't.
yeah, I remember when I was in the Marines in the deserts of Southern California, you would see these we'd be out there, moving around, and you'd see these like uh you want to talk about mythical. They're enormous. Like they've got these ears that are like this long. They're they're not fluffy. They're like they're like muscular. Like you ever see those pictures of kangaroos and the kangaroo is just like fucking jacked, you know? That's what these rabbits are like. You know what I mean? Like if it came at you, you'd have to be like, do I run or do I, fight? um they're big and they're fast. They're incredible.
Yeah, man. And the thing is, the temperament of a rabbit.
Mhm,
We don't understand how intelligent they are. Firstly, they're very intelligent, and they are like one of the bravest creatures. Like I've had a tiny little white rabbit. They're the most aggressive, by the way. And when he wanted to impregnate the other rabbit, I didn't know because they were both young. They were adolescents when they got pregnant.
mhm.
And I was like, okay, I'll make a plan. I'll keep these. And the same day that she gave birth, within hours, he got hold of her. And I didn't know that she had given birth because she gave birth during the night. By the time I separated the 2 of them, in the same day, it was too late. He had already impregnated her again.
Yeah.
And when I took her to the vet to get her spayed, they were like, she's pregnant. I was like, you're kidding me. They were like, yeah, she's like they told me how long she's pregnant. I said, oh my God, that's when she gave birth. They said, yes, they can be impregnated immediately after birth. I was like, what kind of a creature even is like that? That's like, there's something wrong with that whole idea. Like, shouldn't there be like a waiting period? No, not with rabbits.
Mhm.
Once the babies pop out, they're ready for the next shot. And but the thing is, they're quite aggressive.
Yeah.
Like he would run at me full tilt, try and knock me off my feet. and he would bounce off of my ankles and go rolling around. And I'd be concerned. Like, are you
Yeah.
okay? He'd get up, shake his head, and come at me again. And when he
Yeah.
realized he couldn't knock me over with his head, he'd run past me those little razor teeth and slice me on the ankles at different angles. And I was like, this little bugger's dangerous. And he'd slice you. So
Yeah.
then you had to wear shoes when you went, like, you know, in case he thought he could take a liberty. And when he saw you wearing shoes, he'd still keep coming at you and attacking you. And this little guy was this big, man. This like the white, fluffy little rabbit. I've never seen a creature that small, so adamant and aggressive towards a human being, when obviously you're not trying to hurt it.
Yeah.
He's just like, no, you stay away from my lady. You know, she's mine. Like, and watching the way they are with each other. I've got two little black rabbits here. They're this big, right?
Mm.
And I've got a Pekingese dog here. He must be about like 10 times the mass, at least. 10 times the size of that little bunny. And if he gets too close, the bunny will chase him. And he gets scared. It's a tiny little black little bunny. It's tiny. It's about this size, man.
Mhm.
Like this, you know?
Yeah.
And he's not scared of the Pekingese dog. Not at all. In fact, like the little male, if I put the two on, the female is much more docile and she's more chilled. But if the Pekingese comes close to the female, the little male will chase him. And it's like the equivalent of a poodle chasing a Great Dane, you know? So they're very brave. So they're coming to the spirit of the rabbit. And we speak about rabbit holes, which is what we call the show, isn't it? And a rabbit hole is going into a new place, right? To go down a rabbit hole is there's a certain intellectual bravery necessary to go down a rabbit hole, right? You got to be prepared to go and find new information that's probably going to contradict what you think you already know. So there's intellectual bravery and a certain amount of humility to be allowed to be proved wrong. So rabbits have this sort of innate ability to delve deep into the earth mysteries. So there's an esoteric and occult element to the rabbit. And then rabbits also have bravery. So a rabbit, my girlfriend's got a very strong connection with the rabbit, the spirit of the rabbit. I mean, I'm a negative wood rabbit, Chinese here. That's my Chinese thing, right? I'm a wood rabbit, negative wood rabbit. And so I've always had a powerful connection with rabbits too. And I didn't realize what it meant until I got my own rabbits. I was like, my gosh, that makes so much sense now. I understand myself so much better, you know, seeing my connection with rabbits. Like rabbits are fierce creatures. So the spirit of the rabbit is a fierce protector. It's a fierce protector. And they're going to take you down new rabbit holes into the underworld, right? And they're no nonsense creatures, right? They're also very sensitive and compassionate at the same time as being fierce. So there's this dichotomy within a rabbit. And they've got extremely sensitive ears, very sensitive ears, right, to sound. And there's a shrewdness to the rabbit as well. So when you add all of this together, you've got a creature that can travel through dimensions very easily due to the profound sensitivity, what this symbol and this guide represents, if you've got a rabbit guide, and a fierce protector, and will take you into new places, not just the places you've been before, the new places where you have to go and learn the most difficult lessons. So the rabbit spirit will come to you at a time that you've got a very profoundly challenging lesson that you need to go into. And that's powerful, strong, protective rabbit spirit will come to you and will take you down that rabbit hole into the underworld, into your deep shadow parts where you have to face really the challenging stuff. But you'll know that you're safe because your rabbit spirit is with you and there ain't nothing going to mess with that spirit. I'm just going to let the little dog in quickly. He's crying and scratching on the door.
Sure. Well, for people that are watching here, you want to see a little baby chicken? Oh, it's okay. Oh, let's see if I can. Oh, there it is. Oh, look at that. Oh, yeah. Oh, it's okay. I know. It's okay. There you go. This is a lavender wine dot. They're going to be really, you can kind of tell they're gray. It's a little yellow in here because of light, but they're these beautiful gray color. And we got 4 of them. And yeah, they're getting bigger. They're not, their wing feathers have grown quite a lot since we had them. They're so small now. We got them in a big plastic tote with their food and stuff. But yeah. Oh, little sweeties. I'll put them back. I keep on getting wood chips in their water container. I have to figure out how to elevate that thing so that the wood chips don't get in there. Hey.
Sorry about the delay.
Yeah, no worries.
Of course, my phone starts ringing and everything starts happening all at once. Ask for it to rain and you get hail and storm. So you brought a little baby chick onto stage. Lovely, man. How many have you got?
We only have 4 right now. We might get some other ones. It depends on. We got this chicken coop coming. And it's always kind of hard to see to get a sense of how big it is, looking at the pictures online. But depending on how big it actually is, we might get a couple more. But yeah, we're looking forward to that.
Well, what you can also do is you can build a little fence area around it. That's what we did.
Yeah.
So
I
then
got
you can get a lot more. And the coop is just where they go to sleep, and they want to huddle for warmth anyway, right?
For sure.
So then you can like triple your numbers, and you just get like a simple little fence, or you build it out of like sticks. It's quite easy to keep them in during the day, so they got like run around and do their thing.
Yeah. So Easter. So what's going on with the sun?
One more word.
Oh yeah.
Easter. Easter is a Germanic word. Let me see. It's Germanic Easter Iron. So Iron is ruling Mars, Aries.
Okay.
Is it Dutch? Is it right? Is it from Dutch? Anyway, it comes from Dutch. I think it comes from the Germanic languages, from Dutch. Dutch Easter. Yes, so Dutch Easter means iron. Yeah. They pronounce it Easter. We call it Easter, but Easter. And so and systematic is saying the Ishtar, and I think that's quite relevant, actually, what we're talking about here. So Aries is the month that we celebrate Easter, and Aries is ruled by Mars, and Mars's planet is iron, the planet of the metal of war. So Easter has a Mars element to it, which is powerful transformation, right? And Mars on the enneagram, just to give us an idea of what we're talking about here, because when we look at what number Mars represents, right, I think this is something that people don't always grasp. They don't always recognize that that there is this profound element to Mars, where people think of Mars as just being physical and like a war planet, right? But if you look here, number 9, so 9 in terms of numerology is the number that fits best with most other numbers, right? It's the number of humanitarianism, it's the number of activism, and it's the number of transformation. So if you are wanting to transform the world to make it a better place, you will be a humanitarian, right? Or an activist, because that's what you do if you want to improve the world. You want to transform it. And obviously the planet of war was usually how you transformed the world, right? You had a bad king. The bad king had a bad way of ruling over the world, and everybody became corrupt because of the corrupt king. And so get rid of the corrupt king, have a civil war or have a war, and then reset so that everybody can have equality and peace and abundance, right? So you can see how Mars war is connected with this. And so when we're talking about alchemy, the sign of Scorpio, which is the feminine pole of Mars, and Aries, which is the masculine pole of Mars, that's the initiatory, that's the beginning, the first step of the zodiac, ruled by iron, both of those signs, we see this powerful synergy of Mars coming into play. So Mars then represents this homogenized potential of the changing power of Mercury, number 5, right? That means changeability. As you know, like Mercury is really the agent of transformation, right? And the agent of transformation in alchemy is Mercury. The process of transformation is Mars. So you can see 5 on the yellow pentagram here, or the yellow anagram tip goes towards that, and it reaches back towards 4. And 4 is to do with the North Node and Uranus, which is powerful element of transformation, right? And so we'll see how 9 is getting this power from 4 and 5 coming together. 5 is what is producing change, and 4 is what is structured. So the structure of 4 is being changed by the changeability of 5, but it's being governed by 9, which means that there's an altruism attached to it, right? There's a selflessness. So we can see how this sort of relates to resurrection, right? Resurrection has got to do with the perfection of ourselves, is it not? Sort of like the transformation of ourselves to make ourselves better than what we were before, right? And so the whole idea in the Christian faith is that you live a life and you become like perfected, and then you will be resurrected when you leave this world, right? And you will be resurrected to go into heaven and live this beautiful life in heaven. Like, it's just going to be great. Hunky-dory, everything's going to be perfect. But first, you've got to do the work. And so this idea of having to do the work before you get resurrected, and it's passing the crux, and the crux is got to do with like the crux of life and not being alive. So that's the cross, the crux. And that's Saturn. Saturn, the crux, represents time, the rhythm of time. So you need to cross over the rhythm of time in order to reach into the place of resurrection, which means the underworld, which means going beyond time, going beyond the underworld, going through the underworld to transcend the underworld, to go to the place where time does not exist, so that you can come back into time having been resurrected. So the whole idea of resurrection is very centrally connected with the number 9 on the Enneagram, as we can see. And so this sort of gives us a powerful insight into the planet Mars, because we don't think of Mars as being highly spiritualized. Everybody speaks of like Pisces and Sagittarius, right? Sagittarius is the philosopher and deep thinker of mystical things, and Pisces is like the deep, caring, philanthropic. I'll bleed my soul for you to make your world better. That selfless giver that just keeps giving. But Mars is the agent of transformation, or not the agent of transformation, the process of transformation, and what action is necessary to be transformed, shall we say. So I think that sort of is an element of the Christian story. And also, if we look at the story, I'm pretty sure that they've twisted the story of Christos around, by the way. I think that they moved Easter, or they moved what would have been resurrection. Wouldn't it make more sense that resurrection should be in the 25th of December? Because there's a crux, there's a cross, there's an astrological cross that's passed, right? The solstice. So the winter solstice is past. There's 3 days where it goes into that sort of indeterminate zone, if you will, and then it emerges on the 25th. So the sun literally passes away and is reborn after 3 days, the Son of God. And that happens on the sun, S-U-N, and on the 25th of December. So in the old times, solstice would be important, and then there would be a 3-day observation process, and then the culmination of that potential, and that would represent the winter of the northern hemisphere, where everything is not alive anymore, right? The trees are like, and only like, I think after that point, your Christmas trees would start to reawaken, wouldn't they? They'd start to get the first bustling of life, like flowing after that point, which would only manifest as growth maybe like 2 months later, if that makes sense. So there's this whole process of or would manifest as the new shoots that are coming out, and you can see them in spring and the new life. But that would be as a result of crossing that no man's land, the darkest dark of winter. So we can see that like Easter, the concept of Easter fits better. And then the concept of Christmas, right? Being born. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's very related to Easter. But then you can also see that if you were mating in Easter, when would you be born? Your baby be born? Your baby be born December, January, right?
Yeah.
If you were mating on solstice, right? So this is where it gets confusing. We've got April as Easter, but if your mating cycle was solstice, and this is actually the traditional Celtic Easter, right? It's not on April Fool's Day or after April Fool's, April 3rd or 4th, whatever, the beginning of the month. It would have traditionally been on the solstice. Now, if you were on the solstice of March, that would take you to December 21st. So if you were to have sex just after the 21st of March, you should normally be giving birth on the 21st to the 25th of December. So there's a secret of this connection between Easter and Christmas, right? Like the sacred union would be in Easter, right? And that's the crux. So what can the crux represent sexually between a man and a woman? Crossing the event horizon, right? Crossing that point, like between her legs, right? Literally crossing over into her and resurrecting her womb so that one of your ancestors can be resurrected. So when you enter into a woman, you are resurrecting one of your ancestors or her ancestors through her womb. Well, what a concept, huh? So we can see there's a shamanic element of resurrection that can be sort of like mystically deduced here. And I think then, with that in mind, the birth of the sacred child would be Christmas. So you can see how the Christian mystics, where they were coming from when they were looking at the occult, how to take these symbolic astrotheological principles and incorporate it into their own doctrine, if that makes sense, so that their doctrine wouldn't be like dismissed by the pagans. The pagans would be able to say, oh, I get it. You're saying the same thing as us pagans. There's just a few differences. It's like, yeah, it's like I'm going to give you exactly what you're used to. It's just there's going to be a few changes. Instead of all these deities to worship, it's very confusing. There's just one. But otherwise, it's exactly the same. You see, same holiday, same this. So you're more likely to go like, you know what? I like your form of paganism, because it would have been a different form of paganism, really, wouldn't it? It's not just one. There's the Holy Spirit. There's God the Father. There's God the Son. We've got a bit of a gang going on here. It's just three though. There's not more than three. So you can sort of get an idea for, I think, an unconscious desire to maintain the status quo of astrotheological knowledge because it's relevant.
There is a way things work here that's universal. So any religion, any religion that attempts to align itself with how things work is going to have to embody, some of these concepts. And that will involve, a deep knowledge and understanding of all these ancient teachings. So I think, as far as like, as far as like what Jesus was trying to do, I don't know, man. It's confusing. It's I tried to I've read quite a bit of the New Testament, and there's it's not you know it's not very clear what's happening there.
One could be bold enough to say that it almost seems like it sucks more than it's succinct, in terms of the quality of the writing. And I'll tell you why. Because when you look at the first Bible was the Marcion text, the Marcion Bible, right? So the Bible, yeah.
Is that older than the Septuagint or something like that?
Oh, yes.
Okay.
The Marcion Bible is from the 1st century.
What language is it in?
Old Greek.
Greek, yeah.
Yeah, ancient Greek. And so the Marcion, when you had the Council of Nicaea, it is my opinion that one of the main reasons that the Council of Nicaea happened was because Marcion.
Okay.
Right? Because the Marcion Bible was so popular. And they were trying desperately to replace the Marcion Bible. And they had, in the eastern part of the Roman province, they were trying to capture that province and completely own it. But there was still a lot of resistance. The eastern province of Rome is the Holy Land, right?
Yeah.
Let's just take a look at what we're talking about. So they had too much actual history and knowledge of what was happening there to just accept this new form of Western Catholicism that's been forced onto them. But it wasn't Western Catholicism yet. That came later. Or what it was new Western ideas being incorporated. So the original older text of Marcion text, the Marcion Bible, which is like literally like it's dated. Like this is not theory. These are not opinions. There are scholars out there that have studied these texts, and these texts are the oldest existing texts that we have of, and they are referenced in many of the other writings from that time. And one of the first orders that the Nicene, the Council of Nicaea did once they had sort of formalized as a council was to abolish Marcionism and to order the Bibles to be burnt. It was the first order of business. There's no coincidence here with that. And so how that was orchestrated was that the emperor, right, at that time, he called the Council of Nicaea and he got to dictate which different priests would sit where, which would be given favor to sit close to the emperor, which would sit further from the emperor, which were excluded. And so those that were aligned with Marcionism would have been kept outside of the circle. And the ones that were aligned with the new religion that he wanted to form were invited with him. And they were offered money, and they were offered, like, we'll build you a nice church, we'll look after you guys, we'll give you like favor in the Roman system, we'll make sure that your congregation's well looked after, we'll help you basically. And the ones that weren't, they were pushed away. They ended up having to change in order to be accepted. So the Marcion text is very interesting. One of the main things about the original Christianity before it was reformed. Now, bearing in mind that we're talking about the first century into the 100 ADs, into the 120, 150 ADs, the Council of Nicaea happened centuries later.
Right.
It took them centuries to organize themselves so much that they could get rid of all of this. And they had been fighting this Marcionism all the time, the Romans, the Roman power, because one of the central pivots here is differences between the resurrection and differences between the idea of that Emmanuel was born of an immaculate birth. That was not the original tenet in Christianity. That was manufactured and added in centuries later. And there's hard evidence for this. And so when the scholars look at these ancient manuscripts and they go back, Christianity has been transformed, has been re-edited. They call it improved.
Right.
They call it, made better.
Yeah.
But there were step by steps, and there are thousands of edits. I think there are something like 7,000 edits of the Bible that can be tracked, by the way. And like during the time. And so there was the Council of Nicaea. Then there was a council that took place a little bit later. And then there was another council that came about in the 1500s. That was the final council. So there was the Council of Nicaea, 350, I think, roundabout. Then there was another council that came sometime later than that, or was it 320, whenever it was, the Council of Nicaea. And then there was another council, which was also held up in the northern part somewhere. And then later on, there was that council where they were once again re-standardizing the text. So the Bible that we have today has been changed. And the original texts, for example, a lot of the books had to be burnt and banished in order for them to be able to get away with creating the canon that we have today. And there was a big disagreement about the birth. In fact, there are other... No, this isn't working for me, dear boy. Sorry, my little boy. You want to chew everything on there. can't allow that. It's cables there. So, yeah, I think this is why the modern Christian Bible, it's been watered down, it's been edited, it's been changed. For example, there's no word God anywhere in the Bible, in the original Bibles. And in the original Bibles, it's Yah, or there's Elohim, or there's Yahweh in the Old Testaments, for example. They went and changed that all to just the word God. But in the original Old Testament, there's a lot being said. And each of those names has a different meaning and a different title, a different aspect of the divine. And so the pagan roots of the Old Testament cannot be denied when you look at the original texts. But they had to remove the paganism, so they had to re-edit, and filter out all the paganism and just turn it into one word, God, and into more homogenizing, which homogeny seems to be a big thing of it. And then again, of course, there are other elements as well. Like, for example, I think the texts of Philip is one that is quite an important text, which has been heavily edited. And then there were other texts that were sort of just, they came from nowhere, like the book of Romans, for example. Other texts that just is it Romans? No, I could be mistaken.
So,
sorry.
Sorry to cut you off here. It just, to me, I just want to put all that aside because it's like too much. You're talking about, so we have like the King James Bible now, right? That's like the gold standard Bible. Then you have all this in between the Council of Nicaea and now, and then the Council of Nicaea and what came before. And then you have the concept of, you shall know them by their fruits. And you look at what is considered Christianity now. Like, what are the Christians doing? Well, a lot of professed Christians in our government, the United States government, are applauding, what seems to be an actual genocide in the Middle East. And then you look at all there's just there's just a lot going on. There's the debasement of currency, there's the debasement of our women, our men, our culture in general, the value of just life itself. It's all just been brought down and degraded. And for me, like, I just want to put all that aside and, like, I don't know, move towards something that's a bit more tangible. Like nature, my family, my personal relationships, my own intuition, about what's good and right and true. Which I don't know. My intuition probably tells me that is probably closer to the original message of Emmanuel. Maybe.
It seems like the pagans were closer to the truth because they were fully embedded within nature, and their church was literally in a grove of trees. What does that tell you?
Yeah.
And they celebrated the earth. They celebrated the abundance of earth. They celebrated the life. And here's a big thing. Have you considered why we got divorced from nature the way we did? I think it's Christianity as we know it. And do you know why? This is really heavy. And it does sort of incorporate Marcionism, but I want to show you what was the most central theme of Marcionism, why it had to be removed, because it was telling us the truth. And here it is. It's heavy, man.
There does seem to be this this disregard in Christianity. There does seem to be this disregard for the planet, for the earth. You're like not of this world. Like you like, you know, like here it doesn't really matter. You have to like, you gotta constantly be looking beyond, you know. And whatever happens here, you know, it happens here, and you know, all the death and destruction, and the degradation, like we're gonna leave that behind. It's gonna be okay. We don't got to worry about it. It can all be monetized.
I put my foot out, and the little Pekingese bit my toe, and the Malamute went for him. He's not allowed to bite me. The Malamute does not tolerate daddy being bitten, especially since I was just stretching out my feet, and he bit my toe quite sore. At least there's not a lot of blood coming out or anything. He's a cheeky little bugger. He was lying down there. I didn't know he was under the table. I stretched my toe out, and I must have touched him somewhere. But I think you're right. I think and so I had to get the Malamute off of the little Pekingese, because he gets quite aggressive. Like if the little Pekingese goes for my son, you must see the big dog. He's a big dog. He's a Malamute. He's big. You must see him pin the little one down, and he'll open his mouth and he'll growl over his head. And the little one will just be like, and the big one will be like, you leave the humans alone, buddy. Problem is, my son knows that the Malamute will protect him, so he takes advantage of the little one, and he's cheeky, and he's like, yeah, I can do what I want. Like the big one's got my back. You know, he's naughty. But I think you're right, and okay, so it's not bleeding. It's just very, very sore. But bit my toe, man. Cheeky little bugger. I look after this little guy. Like, treat him like gold, man. Treat him like gold. When they're sleeping, they're really moody. You can't disturb a Pekingese when they're sleeping. If you put your foot on the touches, then they're like, the moody little guys. But yeah, here's where I think the problem comes, and I'm gonna call it, right. And like, if there's Christians out there, no offense to you guys, I don't want to hurt your feelings, but I do want you guys to look at this, right? And hold on, I don't want to just make it that it's just their way. I want. So here you can see is the central idea. This is the big point, and this is early. This is the earliest form of Christianity that we can track. The prototype Christianity. And they believed that the demiurge, that the Yahweh of the Old Testament, the God that we worship in the Bible, right, was an inferior deity. And that inferior deity, right, was the source of all evil on the planet. Now, this is a head trip, right? In other words, let me spell this out to you, right? The Yahweh, he rejected the idea that the Savior could have been born of a woman or taken on real flesh as well, right? So Emmanuel was seen as a prophet. That's like quite a big deal, right? And so there's like certain fundamental tenant issues here with the very idea of Marcionism. And so why this is so complicated is because the implication is that this universe was created by Yaldabaoth. This is basic Gnostic thought. And that this universe that we're in was a fallen universe that was created by a demiurge that thought it was the all-living God, but it wasn't. There is an all-living God, but the all-living God's outside of this world. So what the Romans then did was they took the texts. Have you ever wondered why it was in the Old Testament, why it is in Judaism, that slavery is okay, that slavery is completely condoned? There are rules for slavery in the Bible, by the way. You're just not allowed to beat your slaves to the point that they're not alive, but slavery is completely okay. As long as if you beat your slaves, as long as they're okay within 2 or 3 days, you haven't sinned against God. God's happy with you. And what is the story with Abraham, with his children, taking his eldest son, tying him to a rock and ready to remove his heart? What is that? No, while the Christians will tell you, no, we've got a clever answer for that. God was testing Abraham. He said, Abraham, tie your son to a rock and remove his heart. And Abraham tied his son to a rock, ready to remove his heart. And God said, psych, it's just testing you. Does that sound like the demand of a benevolent deity? Right? And so these very obvious issues that are in the Old Testament, which is the testament of this Yahweh, is exactly what Marcionism was challenging. And you'll find that the Knights Templars had the same idea. The Gnostic people that followed had the same idea, right? Manichaeism had the same ideas, right? Who were the other ones? Not just the Templars. You remember the biggest massacre of the Crusades? One of the reasons the Crusades were facilitated was to remove a certain group of people, and the certain group of people were carrying on this Gnostic knowledge that had moved through Manichaeism and had originated in Marcionism, right? And this line of information was being held by the Cathars. And the Cathars also believed that the deity that was ruling the Bible, which was the ruler of that deity, was a false god, and that deity was the demiurge of this world. And so in the Bible it even says, Emmanuel speaks about how Satan appears to him when he's in the desert, right? I will offer you the world. I will offer you everything, right or wrong. That who can offer you anything on earth other than the person who's in charge on earth? Am I right or wrong? How can the devil come and offer you anything that your heart desires? Do you want to rule over everybody? I'll give it to you. You want all the riches? I'll give it to you. You want all the power? Do you want to be able to control everything in the world? I will give you anything your heart desires. Who has the power to grant that wish? The God that rules this world. But now in the desert, Emmanuel is not characterizing this God as Yahweh, the great divine spirit. He's characterizing him as, the deceiver, right? That challenger. So when Emmanuel is speaking about, my God is not of this world, he's of the heavens, what he's suggesting is that the God that rules this world is not the God that rules the heavens, right? And so there's interpretations of these texts that have been interpreted in a particular way, and those interpretations have been crystallized over the centuries. But the original ideas was that the deity of this world that creates, that controls this world, is evil. But that deity still has to follow the rules, because the rules that deity created this world with are the rules that come from the divine plane. So even that deity is controlled by the rules that they've used to create this world, if that makes sense. So it's just a very interesting idea. But now that in itself means that humans thought themselves better than this world. Does that make sense to you? We come from some divine plane outside of this world, and an unconscious recognition that this world is ruled by a deity that's that's so-called evil, right? The Yahweh, as the Martians. So there's this incongruency of thought that have been held by different people in different factions. I think that creates the problem, and I think that might be at the heart of why nature has been so degraded, and why materialism has become such a big fundamental part of the church. Another part of the church, let's just look at this. Do you know how much money the church has? Do you know that if the churches got together and gave up like 20% of their profits that they've got, like in investments and bank accounts and stuff, they'd be able to end world hunger? What a thought, huh? There's so much money in the churches that they could end world hunger, but they don't. What do you think about that, dear brother?
Well, ending hunger is a lot more than simply getting I'm hungry. I need food. Where's the food going to come from? It's either I grow it myself, or there's a long supply chain that has to occur. But anyways, I want to get back to the church has a lot of money. The the same way that Harvard or Yale or Princeton has a lot of money in their endowment. That could be possibly used for better things. But I want to go back to the Gnostic concept of the demiurge as being the god of this world, and that the God of the New Testament that Jesus is trying to direct our attention to is above or beyond and encompassing the demiurge and this world, and is basically it's all pervasive yet somehow unapproachable and unknowable. But to get back to the demiurge in this world, the demiurge created this world, this realm, this planet in nature, and the pagans, they worship nature. Are the pagans worshiping this demiurge?
No,
No,
they're not
okay.
worshiping the demiurge.
Help me
They're
understand how
worshiping life. They're worshiping life.
Okay.
They worship all things that are alive. And Joshua, not now. I'm not going to say it again. Not now. They worship all things that are alive. So their celebration is the celebration of life, right? But in the Catholics, they don't worship what is alive. They worship the demiurge. Why do you think it's possible for them to convince humanity that we need to go on a crusade? Do you know how bad the some of the Cathar massacres were? Like I'll give you an example. The worst
if
one.
I look at the Old Testament, it's men, women, and children, and in an entire city,
yes,
taken out. Yeah.
Yes, and the worst massacre that the Catholic Church, the original Christian Church, managed to do was to destroy a town of 20,000 people, women, children, men. You know why? There were a few hundred Cathars hiding in that town.
Right.
So they were so desperate to get rid of the Cathars that they were like happy to say, you know what, let's just take out the whole town. That way we can't miss any of them. And that just shows like the respect for life, the respect for children, for innocence, innocent children. So these holy warriors that were like sanctioned by the church went out and did things like to end the lives of children. And their conscience was washed clean by the idea that they were doing this for their God. There's only one kind of a presence spiritually that you could do that for, and it's not the divine one, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's just like if you, I mean, if
It's
you've
like a
if you've
ritual
been, I mean, like I'm like
sacrifice.
thinking of like my experience in war, and it wasn't, you know, if you've been anywhere near, you know, war or the potential for instant death, um and killing, it's like, I mean back then, I mean you're doing it with it's, it's very intimate. It's sword, other body, and eh, you're and there's a particular, and if you think about it, there's a particular sensation that you feel in your hand as a blade enters a human body. And now think about, this is happening in a city, and it's like every, like all, all your guys are doing this, and the people are screaming, the women and the children and the fathers and the mothers, and everybody's like losing their minds as you go around and plunge blades into bodies and burn, and burn people alive, and all this sort of stuff. And I'm sorry, I don't think that human beings, our constitution is that much different now than it was then. And so imagine what that does to someone's, mental. I don't think there's any amount of going to church that will clear that from you. Clear that trauma from you. Trauma. Beyond trauma. I don't know. What do you think?
All I can speak of with this regard is collective trauma as it is ancestrally accumulated. And is it the massacre of Béziers, 1209? Yeah, that's the one. That's the one. That's the worst one. I mean, there were a number of them, but the massacre of Béziers, 1209, 1229, that time period occurred on 1209, according to our historical books. It's historical, sort of. It's in our history books, so I don't know how accurate it all is, but I wouldn't be surprised if they made the numbers less than what they actually were, right?
Yeah.
But many thousands of people, and they say up to 20,000 people, and I wouldn't be surprised if there's more. That they're not even recognizing the children that escaped and ran away to go and starve in the wilderness. The parents would have been getting their children to escape, so there must have been like thousands of children that escaped to go and starve. We haven't even thought about that. But I think you're right. I think there is a ancestral wound that is created spiritually and psychologically when people do things like this, that will carry on to their offspring and carry on to their offspring. and carry on to the offspring. And we would today be carrying that ancestral karmic wound.
Well, the wounds are
Right.
just, I mean, okay, this, Revolutionary War, the Civil War, World War I, World War II, and all the continuing conflicts, the conflict, right? The freaking what the US government in Israel is doing right now, bombing fucking Iran and Lebanon and Gaza and stuff like that. Like what I've been thinking about recently is just like um like the the US is bombing Iran, and it's like I've read things, who knows how true this is, but like, an Iranian, there's some sort of back channel between the US and Iran that's trying to be created so that they can talk to each other. Like, and then Israel bombs or kills the Iranian official that was going to try to talk to the government, to the US government, to try to get out of this conflict. And I can't help but feel like there's got to be some sort of spiritual blowback that happens because of all this. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think, is it possible to use more complex words than the K word, like assassinates, maybe, or dispatches, just because the algorithms will get evil towards us and not let people see us if we use certain words too much. But I think you're completely right. And, if you ask me what's happening, the Zionists are in control on the world, right? The Zionists own the world. They don't just own Israel. They own the world. They own the banks. They're not a Jewish sect. We need to get over this Jewish sect nonsense.
The Jewish people are scapegoats. Researching World War II, it kind of made me realize that like whatever Jews are, like that's like a liability shield.
Yeah.
And it's like whoever manufactured that
catastrophe.
that catastrophe and everything like that, they wear Jews as like a skin suit, like,
it's an armor.
Political
armor.
Exactly. And they build this mythology around it and all this sort of stuff, and you can't criticize the Jews or anything like that, but I know Jews. Like, I'm friends with people who are Jewish, and I love them,
they're
and they're
good
fine,
people.
and they're great. You know what I mean?
They're normal.
Yeah,
they got families. They love their kids just like everybody else.
Yeah, but then there's this other thing. There are these other people who claim the identity of Jew, but they're evil. They are evil. They're doing,
and they're not Jewish. And they're not even really Jewish.
Yeah.
Like, and I've said this before. Okay, so firstly, like, for people that don't know, Zionism happened to come into being at the same time that Frankism walked out. And Frankism was a political organization. Now, Frankism was a rebranding of Sabbatism.
Yeah.
Sabbatism was a cult. Sabbatai was excommunicated by all rabbis. Sabbatai was not a Jew. He was excommunicated. He was a Kabbalist that the rest of the rabbis decided was a black magician that was teaching immoral teachings, and they did not want to have anything to do. So Judaism divorced themselves from Sabbatai. He got his own cult. His whole mission with his cult was to create a new world order. And the mission that he gave to his students, it's well documented, was to invade Judaism, Christianity, the Muslim tradition. They were to invade the banking system. They were to invade government. They were to invade the policing systems. They were to invade the education systems. and set themselves up controlling the flow of resources, and to invade office politically, to invade political things. And the whole mission was to hide within religions because it gave them a shield. This is from the handbook of Sabbatai. And then the Frankists continued this because Sabbatai got well ousted. Everybody knew who he was, and people were really wary of this guy's like craziness. Then Frankism came to be. And then Frankism, when everybody knew about Frankism, you see, their mission is to get control and to bring about the new earth. And Zionism is about bringing about the new earth.
Yeah.
So the Zionists are really the Sabbataians. And what they've done is they've embedded themselves within Christianity. They've embedded themselves within Judaism, within the office of political power all around the world, within the banking cartels, within the military, within the school systems, right? And so all these powerful, rich and powerful families that we see, they all have Zionist connections. Why?
Yeah.
Epstein, right?
Right.
Epstein that guy was so deeply embedded within Israeli intelligence and Zionism. His girlfriend, her family, the Zionist through and through family, and Israeli intelligence, Mossad. His connections through Mossad gave him connections to all the Zionists around the world, all the rich and powerful Zionists. And he was acting as a central hub for all the powerful Zionists to be able to maintain their web of power through him.
Yeah.
And the truth has come out now.
Yeah.
So we and one more thing I want to say is the biggest protest in Israel was 1 out of every 10 people in the country went to protest on the streets against the occupation of Palestine. That's like incredible. Now, what that means is 1 out of 4. 1 out of every 4 people between the age of 18 and 50 went to protest against the occupation of Palestine in Israel. 1 out of 4. Could you imagine 1 out of 4 of the Americans protesting against anything?
Well,
I mean, it's never happened.
I mean, hold on. I mean, just real quick, Israel is basically the size of New Jersey, just so people understand the size, like, you know, the population wise. So it would more be like, imagine 1 out of 4 people in New Jersey protesting something. But that is believable. And like, I think it's honestly, I think it's also criminal, the strangulation of information that comes out of Israel, because you don't hear, over here at least, like, you don't hear about these protests. You don't hear about, like, you know, anything about what Israeli people actually think. Like, it can't, I can't believe that the entire population of Israel is evil.
Yeah, it is pretty ridiculous. And it was in August of 2025, right? In August of 2025.
Yeah.
Just in Tel Aviv alone, 500,000 participants. Just in Tel Aviv, one city. And this was happening all around Israel, protests. And so according to the watchdog organizations, they reckon it was about 1/10 of the Israeli population that actually took part in this whole over Israel protest. But if you just take the population of Tel Aviv, that's 1/20 of the population of Israel, just that one city hub. And then you've got Haifa, you've got Jerusalem, and you've got a number of other, Carmel, you've got a number of other cities that have some hub potential. Eilat would have had a huge protest, because I know a lot of people that, like, Eilat's got a lot of activists and a lot of alternative people out that side. And then there would have been people from the north, Like there were protests running throughout the whole of Israel, and we don't hear about this. And that shows that the Jewish people and the Israeli people are not happy about what's happening. And you can actually, if you find footage of that of the protests, most of the people are white. Most of the people are Jewish people, right?
Yeah.
They're not happy with the fact that the Zionist government, they don't have. One of the things I noticed when I lived in Israel for a couple of years, or close to a couple of years, in between 1998 and 2000, yeah, was that, or was it 97, the end? No, anyway, that time period, 98, let's say 98, 99. One of the things I noticed most prominently was that the state, you're not even allowed to have a trance party in Israel. I don't know if their laws have changed. You are not allowed to go into a desert with a sound system and have a party. That's how strong the laws are. The people live in relative fear of their own government.
Yeah.
I tell you, if you go to a protest, you can get into trouble. There can be consequences. The IDF can take you into custody and keep you in custody. By the time you're let out, you've lost your job. Do you understand what I'm saying? Like this is serious. Yeah. Going to a protest, it's not like in other countries where you've got more rights. You don't have rights in Israel. Mm-hmm. It's like a military state. And the people who live there live under the control of this military state fear. You don't have constitutional rights like you got in America. Forget there's no constitutional rights in Israel. If there's a constitution, it's extremely watered down. But just from knowing the people, like people there, protesting is a big deal. It's a big deal. And a lot of people that I met, they felt strongly against what was happening, but they don't protest because they've got families. Because I don't want to put my family in danger. If something happens to me because I go to a protest, my family, who's going to care for them? So a lot of people that would go to the protest don't go to the protest because of fear. If they didn't have such a strong regime, like a total, Mussolini kind of a regime, you'd have a lot more people on the streets. The fact that there are so many people on the streets speaks for itself, Yeah.
All right, man. I gotta log off because I can hear my daughter running around upstairs.
Well, dear brother, as always, it's been absolutely awesome, and I'm sending you much love, much blessing. I hope you have a good holiday, a lovely Easter. I hope your lovely little sweetheart, your little princess, has a great day, and of course your queen as well. I hope your queen and your princess have a royal day of royal celebration and a royal weekend of chocolate tearing.
Yeah, we're gonna go find some. All right, man. You two, make sure your little, not so little one is doing all right.
Yeah, I'm gonna take him. Have you ever made your own chocolate?
No, I haven't made my own chocolate. No.
Okay, let me give you a recipe now that you can do. It's this easy.
Yeah.
Now, when you go out and you go to the shops, go to a health store and buy cacao butter.
Yeah.
Pure, cold pressed cacao butter. You'll buy it in it's like chunks, right? Buy high quality cacao, preferably raw cacao, right? And get yourself raw honey, right? And get yourself some white sesame seeds and some nuts, maybe the nuts that they put in chocolates. What are those nuts called? The pecan nuts or whatever they are.
I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
Yeah. Then you come home, you crush up the pecan nuts a bit, hit some sesame seeds into that, not too much, right? Then what you do is you get some of the white cacao and just grate it into like a flat dish. You know your warm drawer of your oven where it doesn't cook things, but it just keeps food warm?
Yeah.
Yeah. Put it into the warm drawer of the oven so it doesn't cook, but it just melts. Once that's melted, just add cacao powder to it. Add in a lot of cacao powder. Then add your nuts to the solution after you've stirred it up. Then put your raw honey into that, stir it up, and then let it crystallize, let it cool down, then put it in the fridge. Yeah?
Yeah.
Take it out of the fridge and you've made the best raw chocolate you'll ever have. And there's no sugar. It's raw honey. It's cacao. Happy Easter. Hello. Woo! She's a ballerina. Wow. Cool, man. Well, anyway, try that out for the weekend and tell me how it works if you do it. It's really easy to do it. It takes about 45 minutes, half an hour of your time, and you will have made the best raw chocolate. And you know what? When you make it at home, it's not that expensive.
Right.
Because the ingredients you buy go a long way. Anyway, best of luck, man.
Thanks, man. All right. I'll talk to you later.
Enjoy. Big love, brother. Bye-bye. So, yeah, we got sidetracked into the Palestinian story, but I think this is quite relevant when we're looking at the roots of the doctrine that became bless the children, Vincent. Bless the children, man. I'm going to take my little boy out. I was so sad this morning for my little boy. What's the time here now? Okay, it's 2:00. As soon as the midday sun passes over 2:30, I'm going to take him after 2:30. I'm going to take him somewhere special. His mom went out today and she didn't take him with. She went hiking and she's gone out and she's doing like a social thing and she left her child at home. And I thought she was going to take him out. Salad, yes, Rudraksha. These are Rudraksha with a Moldavite on the end. Moldavite. So my boy was like a bit sad. His feelings hurt because his mom didn't want to take him out. And I don't know how a mother can want to go and celebrate without her child. Like I just assumed he was going with her. She was going out. She was doing a thing, and so yeah. Anyway, I'm going to do something special with my boy. I thought he was going to go with his mom. She's gone for a hike. She's gone for a little walk on the mountain. She's gone somewhere, probably to have lunch or something. And she probably doesn't want him around because he doesn't behave well with her. Because her and him don't have the best eye to eye. She has a lack of self-discipline, so she can't really discipline her son. So she doesn't know how to put boundaries down, and she doesn't know how to respect other people's boundaries, so she doesn't have her own boundaries. So she doesn't have boundaries with him, so she doesn't want him with her. It's just very weird, man. It's very sad. And so yeah, as a lesson to people out there, man, make sure you have good boundaries with your kids. Really important. They need to know where the boundaries are. With me, he knows where he stands. He knows where the boundary is. I reward him when he's good, and I take action when he's not. It's just how you got to be, because children do need to know what boundaries are and how they operate. So I'm going to take him out. But the last few words on the story of Easter, on the occult nature of Easter, there were a few things that we didn't really get into specifically. Was the concept of the Easter bunny and the world egg, and how the eating of this egg represents the world egg, and the cosmic egg represents Akasha, and the Akasha represents sound, vibration. And Tom Roo, it's not always easy, man, because his mother and him have these terrible arguments all the time, and it's really difficult for me. I've got to come and be the bad guy a lot of the time, right? I got to be the bad guy because he doesn't know how to behave with his mom. And I don't want to have the relationship where I'm always disciplining him. But, I don't want to have that kind of a dynamic running with him. But yeah, I do think that it's important that we, focus on what's important when it comes to these sacred times, because like the world egg represents the Akasha, and the Akasha represents that transcendent potential within humans, which means it's our connection to our ancestors, right? So the world egg is a symbol for the egg comes from the chicken, and the chicken makes the egg. And so the egg is the symbol of the yolk, is the symbol of birth, is the symbol of your ancestral lineage continuing through you and through your kids. So the world egg, there's a representative element and energy of the ancestral connection, and it represents the akasha, the frequency of sound that holds space, that manifests the structure through which Earth can manifest this material plane. And it's also the seat of our psychic abilities. And so there's this other element with the rabbit that relates to psychic abilities, also within the shamanic field. So having a super developed sense of hearing is a highly refined form of psychicism. In fact, it's the most refined form of psychicism. Clairvoyance is one thing, but clairaudience is the next level of psychicism in terms of developmental stages. And it's how we're able to travel out of our bodies into the cosmos through our ears. We travel on our ears through sound. So it's sound that we travel through. And so the cosmic egg is quite a profound symbol, and which is why we are celebrating Easter with eggs. And why chocolate? Well, chocolate has a profound effect on the parathyroid and the thyroid gland. And in its profound effects on the parathyroid and thyroid gland, it also affects the pituitary and the pineal glands. So your serotonin levels, your dopamine levels, your melatonin levels are all going to be boosted with chocolate. And chocolate purifies your thyroid gland, by the way, very powerfully. Cacao is one of the strongest medicines. So in ancient times, cacao as a medicine would be ingested, representing the cosmic world egg of purifying the center. And that would increase our spiritual vibrational potential so that we can reach the highest level. And also, it has to do with the kundalini energy rising up to touch the Visuddhi chakra, which is where the Sushumna becomes manifest as the two streams of Ida and Pingala become united in a single stream. And the Sushumna is the single stream from whence the Ida and the Pingala arise, the caduceus. So the tip of the spear of a caduceus upon which the sphere sits, that would be your throat. It's related to your Visuddhi chakra, your throat chakra, your thyroid and parathyroid glands. And that drives the metabolic reaction. In fact, that drives all of the glands in the body, specifically, to be clear. And it has a direct line with the Ajna chakra, with the pineal gland and the pituitary glands. In the way that and another thing it has a direct line with is with the pancreas and the triple burner. So the vagus nerve crosses the throat, and there's two parts of the vagus nerve, right? There's the front part of the vagus nerve and the back part of the vagus nerve, and they separate and they go down and they connect directly to your pancreas behind and in front. And so the energy of your pancreas represents your self-esteem and your empowerment and your fire in your body, the fire element, which is what charges the heart with the power of fire, right? The fire gets its heart from the metabolism that's happening that generates the heat in the stomach. And then the fire becomes the heart becomes a dispenser of the hot fluid, the hot fire throughout the system. And so it's an earth element that we're talking about essentially here that's being transformed into fire. The pancreas is a very important go-between, and it represents our self-esteem, right? Our stomach. And it also has to do with how we're able to assimilate information and able to assimilate vibrations and energy into our system. And so this connection with the pancreas is direct. And so one of the Kundalini effects that people will experience when they awaken their Kundalini prematurely would be like their hands. They might get muscle cramps in their hands, twitches in their hands, muscle cramps, shaking in their hands, specifically muscles, cramps, common, and cramps in their face. That has got to do with the operations between the vagus nerve's channeling of energy of pranic flow between the pancreas energy and the visuddhi between the thyroid and parathyroid glands. And the one part of the vagus nerve extends directly up through the neck into the face. And these nerves extend into the face, so they'll get facial cramps. Another part, the nerves extend out across the arms into the fingertips. And so they branch out into the hands, like little adventitious roots of the nervous system. So your hands and your face are very much tuned in to the fluctuations of energy between the vagus nerve, which is why when you're doing healing, you're healing through your hands, right? And your face is how you express your feelings. So your self-expression, your center of self-expression, which is your solar plexus, which is related to the pancreas and the stomach, is expressing itself through your face by manipulating the muscles in your face and your hands, moving your hands towards action. So that's why you can read someone's thoughts very easily in their face and in their hands, right? If someone has something to hide, you'll see it by the way they hold their hands, by the way they move their hands. Or if someone's face, if their mood or their emotions, you can read it on their face. So that's like an interesting perspective, and that this has got to do with this pranic energy that moves between these two poles. And these two poles are representing the earth egg receiving and giving potential of energy. So there's something powerful in this. There's something very powerful in this to understand how the world egg is so fundamentally important. What else was there? Aries, the ram, or we've spoken about the ram, right? The agricultural new year. Aries is the beginning of the agricultural new year. And Easter is literally the word for iron. Iron rules Aries, that's Mars. And that is the beginning, the first step of the zodiac, which turns the wheel of spring. And the new shoots, the flowers have produced seeds that will pop out, and the new shoots will then come as a result of the seeds falling on the earth and making new plants. And so Aries is that first step of this expression of this life force moving into sort of a developmental curve of germination, and it's gone through this process of bringing about the new seeds that will germinate and create more life. So that's like quite an important thing to understand in terms of the cosmic shape of things. And the whole idea of immortality, that's also an interesting point, I think, for us to look at, right? When we're considering immortality, we're thinking about perennialism. And the Christmas tree, for example, the pine as an example, and the conifers, they have always been representative of eternal life, because these trees, they're perennial, right? They live through the winter. Even in the north, even in those trees survive, and spring and summer, they are there. So that's like an interesting thing to consider, that the Christmas tree represents the perennialism, is the fact that things continue, that the cycle of life continues, and that there is a resurgence of life, the potential of life to grow and to become fulfilled. So this, I think, is also quite an important part of understanding this sort of the archetypes behind this particular season, this particular holiday. And obviously the rituals, right, of children going to look for eggs. Think about what the implications here. So we have these cosmic world eggs that are like packages of chocolate, which is powerful nutrition and powerful stimulation for the glands in the body. And the children will go and find these cosmic eggs. And so they got to go on like rabbit holes. They go looking for these eggs. They got to go bopping and bouncing around like little rabbits. And then when they find these eggs, then there's a great celebration where they get to imbibe and eat these eggs, symbolic of taking into themselves the cosmic information of the universe. It has to do with eating the egg and remembering the ancestral memories that you have in your unconscious. I want you to understand the powerful message that's being given to the unconscious through the process of this ritual, if it's done cosmically and consciously, with conscientious awareness of what the ritual represents. And so the reality is that we do need to take a look at these rituals, what they represent. The cosmic egg also then represents the potential for new life. And so eating this cosmic egg is also taking in the potential for new life. For a husband and a wife to eat this cosmic egg is for them to become virile, strong, and able to make more children. And so there's a mating element to this as well. And obviously there's a highly spiritualizing aspect to this to be considered, especially since, we are crossing the event horizon of Aries, the ram, the powerful engine of transformation. So eating of that egg is also going back to our roots, going back to the inner child, and going back to our natural state, which is the Akashic field. So, all of these are elements, I think, to take into account when we're looking at the way in which the ritual of Easter plays out. And I think that pretty much covers it. I do want to take my little boy out. I don't know what the weather's going to do here. But it's been an absolute honor hanging with you guys, having a chat. I pray you guys are going to have an absolutely fantastic holiday season, whatever you're going to be doing, however you're going to be celebrating it, that you're going to enjoy it, that you're going to take it easy, that you're going to smile, that you're going to chill and you're going to thrive. I haven't even been watching here. I should have been watching more conscientiously because I'm actually on my big laptop. I'm on my Linux machine, my old, beautiful, strong, hard, heavy laptop, not like the new light plastic things. I bought this in 2015, and it's got a good graphics card. It's got it was an entry-level gaming machine then, so now it's sort of a bit slow, but it's okay. It's not too slow because it's got a decent graphics card. Well, not decent, but not a gaming graphics card by these stages. It's got NVIDIA, one of the old NVIDIA chipsets in it. But yeah, so sending you all love, man. We've got Salad, we got the Star, we got Tom Rue, we got Valentine. Namaste, Valentine. I hope you've enjoyed. I hope you've all enjoyed the conversation between myself and dear TallTree. And Toby, brother, I take it you couldn't join. You were busy. I understand. Every D, big love. Big blessings, and D-love, much love. And man, sending you all big blessings and peace, honor, and respect. And everybody else, and Vince and Natalie, and I'm scrolling up here. I hope I haven't missed anybody else here. But big love and big blessings to all of you that came to enjoy. Sending you all peace, honor, love, and respect. If I didn't mention your name, please forgive me. I scrolled up as quickly as I could to just try and catch the different names over the past sort of like half hour, whatever it is. But and to those of you that will come and watch, big love, peace, honor, respect. As always, tomorrow, the same time, the usual time, the round table will be on. Maybe not so long a round table. Hopefully a shorter one. Under 4 hours is the goal. But I'm sending you all much love, peace, honor, respect. Take it easy, and Om Shanti. Happy Easter. Happy celebration. Happy mating rituals to those of you out there. It's a good time to get it on. It's always a good time to get it on. But now it's an especially good time to get it on. Surround yourselves with chocolate and just go wild. Big love and big blessings. Om Shanti.